Lesson 21.1, Task 4. Create two-way tables. A survey of 200 randomly selected drivers was conducted asking whether they knew about the law that prohibits texting while driving. What percent of surveyed drivers responded no? All right, so here's the information given. For under age 25, 40 said yes, 40 said no, and 20 said they were unsure. Ages 25 and older, 20 said yes, 77 said no, 3 said they were unsure. All right, so we can take this information and create a two-way frequency table. On the left, they put age, so we got under 25 and 25 plus. At the top, we've got awareness of the law. We've got yes, no, and unsure. So those come from right here, and then we just fill in the numbers. So under 25, the 40, 40, 20 comes from right here. And 25 plus, 20, 77, and 3 comes here. And then the totals are just the rows and columns added together. So there were 200 total people surveyed about the law. All right, so it says complete the explanation of how you can find the marginal frequency highlighted in the table. Each marginal frequency is the blank of the joint frequency in this corresponding row or column. All right, so you can see that these highlighted areas, these are the totals. So 40 plus 20 equals 100, and 40 plus 20 equals 60. So those are just the sum of the joint frequencies in the corresponding rows and columns. All right, so convert the two-way frequency table to a two-way relative frequency table. All right, so what they're going to do is just take the numbers above. So we're going to do 40 divided by 200, 40 divided by 200, 20 divided by 200, etc. So you can see here that they have just divided each number by the total, which is 200. That's how many people they surveyed. And that gives you the percent in that category. All right, so it says, why is every entry divided by 200? You divide each entry by 200 because that is the total number of people surveyed. That is true. 200 represents 100 times 2. Not sure why they would multiply it by 2. All right, so the percent of the surveyed drivers who responded that they did not know that it is illegal to text while driving is 58.5%. Fill in the numbers to complete the explanation as to what contributes to the 58.5%. So the joint relative frequency of people under age 25 who responded no, all right, 25 or under who responded no is 20%. And the joint relative frequency of people age 25 plus who answered no, all right, 25, here's 25 plus, that would be 38.5%. And 20 plus 38.5% equals to 58.5. So those 2% added together is what contributes to that total number. All right, that's all for task 4. If you have any questions, let me know. Lesson 21.1, Task 5. Analyze data using two-way relative frequency tables. The results of a random survey about whether triathletes prefer cycling, running, or swimming are shown in the two-way relative frequency table. A vendor is selling sports equipment at this triathlon. Based on the results of the survey, for which sport should the vendor promote its products the most? For what age group should the vendor target its promotion of that sport? All right, so you can see all of the swimmers in here. Looks like they're probably kicking and scratching each other, trying to get out of the water. But anyways, here's the table. It says under 50, 50 to 65, 65 and older. Cycling, running, and swimming. So you can see these percentages here. Again, these numbers total at the bottom, these numbers total here, and then the rows total on this end. All of these total up to be 100%, which is what the 1 represents here. So it says, does the relative frequency 1 in the lower right corner tell you how many triathletes were surveyed? No, it simply tells you that this equals 100% of the total that have been surveyed. All right, so compare the marginal relative frequencies, 21, 35, and 45. All right, 21, 45, and 34. So they've got 34 here in the middle, but these are coming from the totals here on the bottom. So this was cycling, swimming, and running. So it says complete the statements interpreting the percent in the situation. 21% is the marginal relative frequency of triathlons who preferred. And again, you can see that from the table right here. 21 is the cycling, 34 is swimming, and running. So cycling would be here, 34 is swimming, and 45 is running. All right, so it says running is preferred sport with the greatest marginal relative frequency. The vendor should promote its running products the most. Why is the greatest marginal relative frequency important to the vendor? All right, if you're trying to sell a product, the more people who are interested in that product, like you've got a higher probability of selling that product. So let's see what our choices are. So it says the greatest marginal relative frequency is important to the vendor because it tells the vendor which sport is preferred by the most athletes. The greatest marginal relative frequency is important to the vendor because the largest number is always the most important. All right, so for this one, it tells the vendor which sport is preferred by most athletes. Okay, so the table tells us that 45% prefer running. All right. All right, so it says compare the joint relative frequencies 0, 10, and 35. So let's look 0, 10, and 35. All right, so that would be these numbers here. They are joint because they're on the inside here where these are marginal here. So we've got 35 is under 50, 10 is 50 to 65, and 0, 65 and older prefer running. Kind of makes sense. All right. So it says, why are only these three joint relative frequencies considered? Only these joint relative frequencies are considered because they are central to the relative frequency table. Only these joint relative frequencies are considered because they fall under the category of triathletes who prefer running. And the 45% from the last question was talking about running, so that's the numbers that we need to look at. Okay, and here's what they said. It was determined that running is the preferred sport. So those three numbers together equal the 45%, which is the marginal relative frequency who preferred running. So those numbers come strictly from the running column. All right, the joint relative frequency representing triathletes under 50 who choose running as their preferred sport is the greatest. The vendor should target the promotion to its running products to triathletes under the age of 50 the most. The greatest joint relative frequency is important to the vendor because it tells the vendor that the age group under 50 contains the most triathletes who prefer running. All right, that's all for task 5. If you have any questions, let me know.